Hello, everyone. This is Rosangel Perez with Alan Steinfeld. Welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be here with you live again on this strange and significant day, isn't it?
Yeah, it's 19 years later, right? A lot of people say that September 11th, 2001 was a pivotal moment because it's an event that touched everyone all around the world in some day. And here we are 19 years later. And we wanted to take a moment as two New Yorkers who are active in the metaphysical consciousness community, not only to offer our perspectives about what we've learned, what have experienced, but also sort of like to tie it into what this means for today and what we're learning this year of 2020, which is one of those worldwide events that's definitely affecting all of us in some way.
Right. I always think it's interesting these moments where it seems metaphysically that the timeline splits, right? Did you lose my picture? But the timeline splits. So we're like going along in a certain way and boom, something happens on 9/11, or going back in history, the JFK assassination, in 1973. People know exactly where they are at those moments when everything changes. But this is sort of different because this crisis, this virus, whatever it is, has been like a long moment of realization where boom, now the world is different. And I think that makes it even more of a significant change because it's kind of like a rolling transformation. Does that make sense?
A rolling transformation. Yes, it does make sense, Alan. This is why I wanted to have this conversation with you this morning because there are so many reasons why living in this moment today, whether you are old enough for whoever might be tuning into this program to remember how this day affected you. Right now, together, we're just in this experience where we can't deny that we're experiencing a lot of the same things all over the world. And is this something that is uniting us? Are we being united in our hearts? Is this awakening us? What does this mean for the human being and the collective? And I have to say that before we get deeper into the conversation, Alan, I would love it if it's okay for, I would love to open up with the four directions. I think it's such a
Yes,
beautiful
please,
prayer,
of course.
just a beautiful
Yes,
prayer
do
to sort of
that.
anchor this in. And there's a
Yes.
version of the Four Directions prayer that is adapted by Vera Deary. And I'm just going to invite, I'm going to say, instead of I'm going to say it is we, so that we can move into this beautiful conversation and this with our hearts unified. So ready,
Yes.
everyone, I'll invite you to sort of, to get centered. Let's take a deep breath in through our nose and exhale. And I want to offer the gift of chimes. I think that these sounds are very soothing to the soul, to the heart, to the body. So many of us are grieving in some way right now, in many ways, whether we're remembering this day and what it's meant to us and the people that we lost, or how it affected us collectively, or we are just grieving for the many losses and just how difficult this year has been on so many levels. It is testing just about every aspect of us in personally, collectively. And so I'm inviting all of you who are tuning in to sort of like join us in this beautiful circle that we can sort of tap into because we are beautiful multidimensional beings and we can definitely tune into this frequency that we're creating together. So I'm inviting you, Creator, it is we. Thank you for today's sunrise, for the breath of life within us. and for all of your creations. Creator, hear our prayers and honor our prayers. As the day begins with the rising sun, we ask, Spirit Keeper of the East, Brother Eagle, be with us. Fly high as you carry our prayers to the Creator. May we have eyes as sharp as yours so we are able to see truth and hope on the path we have chosen. Please guide our steps and give us courage to walk the circle of life with honesty and dignity. Spirit Keeper of the South, Wolf, ooh, be with us. Help us to remember to love and feel compassion for all mankind. Help us to walk our path with joy and love for ourselves and for others, for the four-legged, the winged ones, the plants, and all creation upon Mother Earth. Show us that it is right for us to make decisions with our hearts, even if at times our hearts become hurt. Help us grow and nurture our self-worth in all ways. Spirit Keeper of the West, Brown Bear, be with us. Bring healing to the people we love and to myself. Bring into balance the physical, mental, spiritual, so we are able to know our place on this earth in life and in death. Heal our bodies, heal our minds, and bring light, joy, and awareness to our spirit. Spirit Keeper of the North, White Buffalo, be with us. As each day passes, help us to surrender with grace the things of our youth. Help us to listen to the quiet and find serenity and comfort in the silences as they become longer. Give me wisdom so we are able to make wise choices in all things which are put in front of us. And when time for us to change the of worlds has come, let us go peacefully, without regrets, for the things we neglected to do as we walked along our path. Mother Earth, thank you for your beauty and for everything you have given us. Remind me to never take from you. Remind us to never take from you more than we need, and remind us to always give more than we take. Aho, Ashe, Wepa.
Wow, nice. You know, if we all did a four direction path prayer, we would see there were no borders. I mean, you know, the east doesn't end anywhere, or the west or the north. It's one planet. And, you know, the whole idea of this boundary is such an artificial creation on planet Earth. I think the virus is showing us that there are no borders, really, for the human race. And I think part of this is that we haven't, this is a little bit of a criticism judgment, we really didn't learn the lessons of 9/11. We went to war instead of to peace. And that just kind of disrupted the whole world. I mean, we're still feeling the ramifications of our response, whatever our is, to that. I mean, I think we can do something different now with this crisis. I think we can come together, and it's the hope anyway, that we can live differently as a planetary race of human beings that don't have these artificial borders. I mean, countries, I mean, that's all political manipulations. I mean, I believe in cultures, the uniqueness of different cultures, but, you know, crossing a line or this, obviously the virus didn't listen to the ideas of borders, because here we are in a worldwide situation, and we're all in this together, really. That's the big lesson here. So it's no us against them. It's
Right.
no blame. It is. It's you know, we're here to help each other. So that's so important about this time, don't you think?
Absolutely. You know, some of the things that I reflect upon when it comes to just these times and ever since 9/11, which I have to say for many of us, it was a turning point where whether we wanted to or not, it was a wake up call, as you said. And for some of us, it was a wake up call in a way where we started exploring deeper the journey of self. I know for me, it woke me up from being in a little bubble experience which is a little bit of a paradox because I grew up in an environment where the streets were rough. You know, there was gang banging and daily shootouts and prostitution and drug dealing. And yet there was this very naive aspect of me that was going to work, you know, doing her daily routine. And I remember on that particular day, I was doing my daily routine. I got stuck in Penn Station. I didn't know what was going on. And in those days, I was working for VH1. And talk about like being so clueless that I I'm like, what's going on? I walked into the place to get my daily buttered roll, and that was when I first heard, hey, there was an airplane that struck one of the buildings, and nobody thought anything of it because we thought it was like a tiny little thing, and we were like, oh my god, like something's always happening in New York City. And all of a sudden, as the day progresses and we all witness the towers fall, it was like a moment of disbelief, right? Where is this TV? Is this like, you know, you're watching a bad movie, or did this really happen? And as the day progressed, and obviously the months and years, and you start collecting stories from other people, you hear how many people were affected from that same event, whether they saw it on TV, whether they were a police officer who was the first to respond on the site because they were the first precinct there, or the firefighters. And for us, I think that those of us who were in the city, we got not only so many different perspectives, but also a knowing that we were all in this together, and we all needed each other, and we needed to depend on all aspects of whatever, the police force, the firefighters, the neighbors, the goodwill of people to get us through this time. And what I think, at least temporarily, is softened our hearts. I remember being on an LIRR and looking at what the remnants of smoke that just kept just burning right after, and how eerie that felt and smelled, and the mourning collectively that you felt in that car, that train car that days before was just hustling and bustling and just very active, go mode. And all of a sudden we're in this stillness, right? So here we are, 2020, and life has forced us into a stillness of sorts in a very different way. And some people have been comparing this time to, hey, this is like another version of 9/11. And I want to sort of explore that with you.
It totally is. Well, no, I wasn't actually in the city when that happened. You know, I was in Hawaii, and it probably was many hours after it actually happened. Someone woke me up, because it's what is it, 6 hours different. And they said, guess what? New York's been attacked, and these planes hit the buildings. And I just went to the nearest television, and I kept watching it over and over again, the towers falling, because it's just so hard to believe that these monoliths just collapsed. And so I just had to keep watching the video over and over just to kind of get that something big has suddenly changed. And that's what I'm saying. It was like suddenly a new world came into view. It was a new reality. Let's just call it that then. And we're in the same sort of, this is, like I said, it's more of a long drawn out transformation now. And maybe that's what we need in order to really make a difference with how we're living. You know, what's really important to us, our families, the people that we're close to, maybe not just going out and drinking in restaurants, or, shopping for things we don't need, not to put anyone out of business. But what's really important is how we've had to live for the last few months. And I think it's a reset. It's a reset. And well, 9/11 didn't do it, but something definitely has to change now, because I don't think there is any normal anymore. There's no going back. So I appreciate, though, how your feelings about that 9/11 event and how it affected you, and what did you learn, though? What changed for you after that? I'm just curious.
After being popped from my little bubble,
Mhm.
so much, right? It teaches you to, at least for me, it started teaching me as I started learning about that inner journey, which meant tapping more fluidly into my intuition. And then one of the discoveries when you start learning about 9/11, you start to realize that so many people dreamt about it. Other people in different fields were saying this was going to happen because they maybe had insight or inside information. And then there was this sort of thing that was measurable, right? Of how our collective consciousness sort of like kind of tuned into each other on that specific day. And I wonder, was that sort of a portal? Did we create a portal into a new world of new possibilities? Because so many people had many awakenings at that point afterwards, right? And
Yeah.
of course, that was unfolding slowly. But sometimes those
But
awakenings, like for some people, it didn't come from a fun experience. It was from this traumatic PTSD event.
right, it's still happening. I just got a picture from a friend who showed me a scene that's happening right now in San Francisco with the fires burning all through California. Just the breathing in that smoke, and it's like blotted out the sun. Maybe I share this picture with you because we this is not something that just happened. It's something that's happening now. Climate change is real. I mean, taking action on, like, how whether it works or not, everyone's supposed to wear a mask to make themselves safe from others. I don't know if I believe that, but at least it's sort of the idea. Protect others and not just yourself. Well, what are we doing now to protect the planet, and which is each other? What can we do? We need drastic plans, because these are just like little warning things. It's like what, you get a sign here, you get a sign, and you just don't listen. You just and keep. Oh, maybe I can show you this picture from San Francisco. Do you get a screen share on this? No. Oh, you do have a.
Let's try it.
I see it. I see you have a screen share. If mine sent me this picture from San Francisco. Let me see if I could screen share this.
I was watching the reports this morning, and I mean, if we're talking about the sacred breath here, right? And whether or not wearing a mask helps, you are, if you're wearing it, it is depleting your breath a little bit, and that's just science, and that's proven. Now we're experiencing these weather anomalies or these fires, whether it was started by that gender reveal party or it was started another way, it's still affecting the lives of so many human beings. But this hasn't been a singular event. There's been so many fires, and really Mama Earth has been speaking, because the storms, the tornadoes, I didn't even know that something like fire tornadoes existed. We had a hailstorm not too long ago here in New York. New Jersey had an earthquake a few days ago.
I heard that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, this is something we need to come together as a planet. Really, this is critical. I mean, I'm not an alarmist, but it seems, yes, this is a record-breaking hurricane season, and the fires in California have destroyed even more than it did before. I mean, this is not an isolated thing that we're dealing with. It seems like it because we're so caught up in our own individual dramas, but
Right.
this is big. I mean, we need, instead of making weapons, we need governments, if that's who's going to even do anything, to come together, or people, and say, how are we going to handle this divine, beautiful planet that we're living in? What's the best way to live in harmony with the forces of nature? I mean, these are our earth bodies. You're living inside the earth, and you want to take care of that earth and make it look beautiful. And we've been given this really precious material to do the best we can for as many people, and it's just been so distorted, and now we are really facing the consequences of our distortion. We're all responsible. Every time I take a plastic bag from a supermarket, I feel guilty about it. I mean, yeah, but that's one thing. But why aren't the world governments sitting down and saying, we got some serious issues to deal with here? Because they work for the people. We elect representatives, that's the word, representatives, to represent us. I mean, it's a little naive understanding of
And the
politics,
wellness
because
of the community. Right.
yeah,
At least that's
yes,
what I think that maybe that's part of one of the awakenings of 2020, where we are realizing that maybe that's not necessarily what is happening. And even though
well,
the conversation of politics is so, it's always been divisive, but in the last couple of years, I just don't understand how having a political preference can get people just like in violence with other human beings. And that to me, and I think this is why I wanted to have the conversation with you today, is because we both host platforms and we interview people where we're wanting to understand more about their insights and perspectives. And at least for me, Alan, where I've been doing this for 8 years, there are many things that I've changed my mind about, and I think that
I,
that's the awakening journey. Like, the more information you get, you're like, oh, I didn't know this. Oh, I didn't know this. Like, when I first found out about reincarnation, I got very angry. I didn't want to explore the conversation. It
why did you
triggered
get
me
angry?
immensely. Huh?
Why anger? Why did
I
you get
got
angry?
anger. I got angry at Gary Zukov because I was reading his book, The Seat of the Soul. And I closed the book
Why
and
did
I was
you
very
get
dramatic
angry?
about it. Because I wasn't ready to
But what?
integrate that information into my being. And then I realized
Well,
over time that resistance was also informing me.
mm, that's good. Your resistance informed you. That's a good way of putting it. But you're right. It is not a political situation. Environmental change. This is not about politics. This is about coming together as the caretakers of the earth and seeing what's the best way to live in harmony. I mean, I don't know where politics even fits into that. It's a global problem, and you ever, of course, you've looked at the Earth from the moon, that famous shot. It's like, one of the astronauts said, "We didn't come here to look at the moon. We came here to look back at the Earth."
Mm,
And so
I love that.
I think, yes, it's very emotional that this is something that is so precious, and life itself and the animals and everything, that there could be a plan to make it all work. I really think
I
it's
believe that.
possible.
I think my divine inner
Mhm.
child really truly believes that. And I don't feel that it's a naive way of thinking. I understand the reality of the world we're in, but but the potential, right? When I walk down the block and maybe I see something, I'm like, wow, if like all the recipe for everything we need to do is right here, right? It's within us. It's within our resources. And and what has happened? We are so afraid of each other, right? And not
Even
all of
more
us,
so
but
now.
there's but we're so afraid of each other. We're afraid to build with one another. And these days, the media, specifically number one, mainstream media, they're doing a great number in playing dividing games. You know, just as they did in 9/11, where anyone who had the Middle Eastern, Arabic, Indian look, even if you're any brown skin, because every single time I was traveling during those years, I was always getting pulled out, right? I would get
Oh, really?
singled out in the street. People would yell expletives at me because they thought that, you know, it's part of the programming that we receive from media, and all of a sudden people are singling you out because they think that you're part of this guilty group. And in these days, and I'm quote unquote guilty group, right? Because there's a story that they told us, and I'm like, just because there's bad apples in every culture, in every and every even holy place, which is what I tell people, that sometimes even in the metaphysical communities, I've met the biggest dirtbags than in corporate. Like, and what does that tell you? How does that inform you? It informs you that every place has great people, people that are don't have the best intentions, and maybe it's because they don't know any better, or they've never met anyone that had great intentions. And so as we're moving through this world, I know that it's a lot easier to be in judgment, and we think just because we see 5 minute blurb that we know everything. But life is asking us to be a little bit more compassionate. And speaking as a Latina, I have just too many community members that are breaking my heart with some of their point of views that are just utterly racist, divisive, hateful, and it's the same vibration that you are fighting so hard against. And for me, like, this is a time that we need to rise above it. And I'm not saying or suggesting for anyone to forget history or their stories, or things that have happened, because we also need to bring those things forward to heal, right? And be with it. But at the same time, we are living this on this precious mama, right?
Mm-hmm.
Here, you and I, like, if imagine if I stopped talking to you, Alan, because of the color of your skin, and I chose to look at you like, oh no, and all of a sudden I
I,
looked at you, and every single time I looked at you, I just gave you all their identities about things that I assume about you that I don't know whether or not they're true. I would lose the opportunity to get to know a friend.
right. No, but you're so innocent, um, Rosangel. You're so. I mean, you were born that way, where you're just open and you don't have any hate, or you've maintained your purity, just from what I know of you, and that's unusual. You haven't been tarnished by experience, and you've just keep opening, and that's a great way of being. But I don't know why everyone's not like that. I mean, I guess they're brought up in more difficult situations and they've reacted. And yeah, I think if everyone was like what you're saying, we wouldn't have these problems. But
Well, here's
people
what
are
I will tell
angry.
you. Oh,
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No.
Please continue. No,
Tell me.
I will just say,
No.
just living life on a slower lane these past 10 years, and I feel like I've just been collecting stories from people. And in particular, our youth, the younger generation, a lot of them, the rhetoric that they've been exposed to has been of vibrations that they're responding to with anger and more fear. And a lot of that, as I'm learning, has come from maybe the educational system, and some of the programs that maybe they're being offered that the parents don't really fully understand. Life is moving so quickly and so fast that I understand why maybe life created this reset, this great pause for humanity, because there's a lot of things with the way we've been navigating this world that were completely broken. There's a lot of things in how we've accepted the continual perverseness in mainstream movies, Hollywood, and let's not talk about Netflix right now. And I come from that industry, the music television industry. You know, like I was there one time in a panel when somebody asked me, like, how did I feel to be connected to an industry that just kept sexualizing women? You know, and
And what did
then
you
you're
tell
like,
them? What did you say? What did you say about that?
what did I say? I mean, it's like it's like it feeds each other. You know, when you do when you look at the ratings, the most scandalous, sensational things are what people tune into. And so I don't
I
know
know.
if this perverseness that we're seeing being pushed on society and how some of the kids are being sexualized, if that's just the formula of like, oh, the more scandalous, the more people will tune in. But when we don't have a pause, like these conversations to say, hold up a second, I had a long work day. I just tuned into Netflix and I'm seeing this. Why is this on? Like, who's saying that this is okay? Like, there are times that some of us watch things on TV, and it's because, you know, these are stories that I also hear, and they take that to dream time. It gives them nightmares, or they feel like the part of the movie has continued with them, or they're very disturbed by the images, and they have these nightmares of entities. I mean, I've heard the craziest things, and we don't really have the time in these days to talk about all of those things that have just not working in society.
Well, everyone's talking now about a new Netflix thing, Cuties. Do you see these? Have you heard about that? That's these 10 year
Yeah.
olds that are purposely being sexualized through their own intention. I mean, it's so deep. I mean, I only saw a little trailer, but it was real. It was kind of gross, and that these young girls are sexualizing their body even before there's an awareness of sexuality. So they don't even know what they're doing, and it's a brainwashing. It's a programming. I think, who knows, from higher negative entities or something. Everyone's talking about this program now because it is kind of gross that and Netflix is just loving all the attention, I think, and they've done some great things, Netflix, but it's so deep, the whole cultural programming. I mean, people wouldn't be racist, whether they're black or white, if they didn't listen to someone telling them something, or the media, or I if we can stay pure and just meet each other beyond our conditioning and say, oh, there's another part of myself. This is what the prayer the Native Americans would say. I meet another one of myself, in a different form. And, instead of being afraid of the difference, we can love the difference, because that expands me, the more different culturally. And I get to learn more about what it is to be human. And that's exciting. I love traveling all over the world and meeting different people and getting into their culture, understanding it, not taking it back and making my own, but just understanding the diversity of people, I think is the gift to such just humanity, and how it shows up in so many different forms. And that's always been exciting, because we're basically all the same. I mean, but on the inside, actually, and how people manifest different dreams in different ways is just remarkable to see and learn from. And, we could take that beyond this planet, of course, if we want to go there and say, how do sentient entities show up and manifest their genius in different ways, or their cosmic cultures in different ways. That also expands us. I'm writing a book now called Making Contact, which is a sort of overview of the whole UFO situation. And the point of view that I take is that these beings that are maybe not Earthlings still are equal to us. They're not greater than us. They're not less than us. They're equal in the idea of a soul incarnating in a different form, and meeting them. How does that expand who we are? Because we have to go beyond our conditioning to meet the other in an equal embrace, and that's a greater freedom to who we are. I mean, that's the irony of meeting the ET races. They make us more human, in a sense. They expand our humanity. Just like meeting people from other cultures, they expand us. This is what's so exciting about living in New York, is that, wow, there's people from all over the world right here that I could meet and learn from, and be bigger than I would if I was just this little narrow-minded culture. So we're Aquarians. I think that's sort of the nature of that. Aren't you an Aquarian? No.
I'm actually in Aries.
Oh, okay. Maybe someone I was talking to. But anyway, yeah.
But, here's my question to you, Mr. Steinfeld, now that you brought up the Space Brothers, the Intergalactics. Some people, because of the way 2020 is going, and we have already heard from the Pentagon, you're right, releasing these aerial footage of unidentified, what is it, aerial phenomenon? And is that the correct terminology?
Yeah, UAPs. They rebranded UFO,
right,
because the UFO brand wasn't working so well for people, so they rebranded. Yes, so they're calling them UAPs. Yes, unidentified aerial phenomenon.
So, one of the memes going out there is like, what's next in 2020? Is are we going to finally have the revelation everybody's been waiting for, where it's like an undeniable huge sighting? Of course, people say that's been happening, which I also agree with. And I actually had my own sighting late December last year, which I thought was fascinating.
But you were going to ask me a question.
So
go ahead. No, go ahead.
My question was, like, do you think that we'll see an unveiling of the real beings, not just maybe, I don't know, because some people say some of these technologies the government owns, so that's why it's sort of like up in the air. So beyond technology, do you think we'll see proof of intelligent life? I mean, beyond our intelligence. I mean,
yeah,
it's
no,
hard to talk about the subject because it's intra, extra.
No, it's all part of everything. I mean, partly my belief, they're waiting for us to come together as one planet if we're really going to meet another race of beings. How could we have such differences within our own human race? You're a shade darker than this or lighter. It's like when you meet beings really different, then we'll realize how much similar we are. But, the idea is we have to just embrace the other, because these beings, in my opinion, not coming here to take over the planet or to control us or to have us worship them, or if they wanted to do that, that would have already happened. They're here to slowly interface with our world so we can grow up and then be responsible beings for, like, again, this planet that we've been given. If we can't be responsible for the piece of land we're going to go get bigger, like to meet the cosmos. We have to. So they're waiting, I think, and who knows, they're waiting for us to. And we haven't shown signs of that. So we're being tested, not by them, but by our own unconscious. So I think it's a very slow process. There have been a lot more sightings this year all over the planet. I just talked to this pilot from, well, he flies for the United Emirates. I'm going to have him on my YouTube show where he talked about seeing this light in his airplane as a pilot, and then he starts to get downloads and awakening process of how to be more compassionate, more loving, and it's directly from the T's. So he says. So, and they say they want us to be the human beings that we can be, which means compassion and loving and non-judgmental, if it's possible. There's so many levels within culture, every culture, that I think it's up to each person, like wearing a mask, supposedly helping, protecting others. We have to each do something. Not that I totally believe the mask thing, but we have to each do something to make this planet a better place. And that might just be like the Dalai Lama says, kindness, my religion. I mean, I'm working on that too. Oh, there's times where I get impatient and, but they really are saying it's up to you. If you want to meet us, you have to make an effort to be different beings in a good way. That's what I feel. So, yeah, they're just hanging out and saying, okay, humans, we're here, but you're not seeing us because you're so wrapped up in your own little dramas that that's all you care about yourself, that separates us from the rest of this great galactic environment. So we have a lot to deal with until we
Alan,
they don't want us
that's
to.
very interesting that you just
What
chose
part?
those words to be
What
so
which
caught up
words?
in your little dramas. Because
Yeah.
remember, I told you I had a sighting? I was caught up in my own
Yeah.
little drama when
What was
I had that sighting. Well, it was just, when you just have those days where you just feel like beat up by life. And I was just feeling like, I was just feeling like mourning, like I just hit the wall. And I'm like, I felt a sense of exhaustion at the same time. And this was December 2019. So I had just done an event and I'm walking home. I'm dragging my little suitcase because I had done a little tabling event, and I'm walking back because I know I needed to walk, but I am walking moping, looking at the floor, just feeling all so sorry for myself. And then I had this little like insight, take a deep breath in and just at least feel the breath. That will always make you feel better, right? So when I took a deep breath in, I exaggeratedly went so far up that I looked up at the sky and I saw a ship I've never seen in my life. In terms of like the way it was shaped, that I tried to draw it, but like I would say from
what did it look like, though? What did the ship look like?
the ship. Okay, so the ship, I didn't see any lights. It looked like it was brownish. It seemed from my vantage point that it was, it was huge. It was like long like this, and it looked like it could be maybe 2 or 3 airplanes long. And then then it had 2 little spikes like this, and that looked like it could be the size of a little airplane. The little spikes. So it's down like this, like that's real skinny, but in the middle it had what almost looked like an upside down McDonald's M. It was weird. And it was silent. Of course, it like a lot of people say when they have a sighting, where is everybody else so you could scream so that other people can have that sighting with. I found myself on a desolate block in Brooklyn. There was maybe, I was in Brooklyn.
In Brooklyn?
I was in Brooklyn walking by some residential houses, and there were absolutely no lights on that block. So when I looked up in the sky, it was nighttime. It was just turning into nighttime. So it was like, well, in December, it gets dark fast. So it was already like 5, 6 o'clock. And what was even more interesting is that I was listening to a YouTube channel, and they were talking about in intelligent life. They were talking about UAPs but and having experiences, and here I am, I have this experience, and it automatically took me out of my woe is me, I feel bad, to what the heck was that? And
Well, I think that's what we need, yeah, to wake us up. But yeah, go and
right, to
what were
wake
you
you
saying?
up. And my feeling was, when I looked at it, was that I witnessed something that was very ancient. I don't know if it was something that was just visually in my dimension, and then it left, but I saw it. It was really quiet, just gliding towards the sky. And I am grateful for having had that experience. There's a part of me that doesn't believe it happened, but I do understand what you mean, that something so big like that can shift you from the suffering that we're all experiencing right now. And I, as we start winding down this conversation, I kind of wanted to sort of move into maybe some self-care little tips that we can offer the community, that could
Yeah.
be helpful during this time.
Well, just one thing. You're right. They're here to wait, but they're not here to save us from ourselves. Everyone fears the aliens, but I think fearing people, is a wise. I mean, that's the problem, really. Is each other. If we can find the compassion in ourselves for each other and emanate love, see each other as perfect and divine, that's self-care, but it's also care for the others. So if we can all come to a place where no one is greater than us, including the ETs, or no one is less than us, including the homeless person on the street, who knows the awful situations that person's been in. If we don't judge, and it's not easy because we're so insecure as human beings that we always want to make ourselves feel better by judging others, like somehow has some warped psychology. But we can get over that. We actually make ourselves feel better by loving and honoring the other. So we have to just change the way we think, and the self-care becomes, for the others, and it just builds a new society. And this is what this time is about. How are we going to live differently? Each of us. It's up to each of us. There's no politician, no political party, no, dogma or television show. It's really each person needs to be responsible and pure, like you, Rosangel.
Eh, This reminds me of a quote by that's been interpreted by Rumi. It says, "Yesterday I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today I am wise, so I'm changing myself." That's what it just reminded me, what you
Yes.
said.
Oh, I have a book I was going to actually read some.
Yes, yes, please so. And another quote that
Uh,
I wanted to offer was, "The wound is the place where light enters you."
the womb is where a place where
The
light
wound, the
enters.
wound, the
The
wound
womb.
is a place where
I'll read.
light enters you.
Um, Here, I'll read this one. There is a community of spirit. Join it and feel the delight, walking in the noisy street and being the noise. Drink all your passions and be a disgrace. Close both eyes to see with the other eye. Open your hands if you want to be held, and sit down in this circle. Quit acting like a wolf and feel the shepherd whose loving fills you up. At night, you watch wanderers, but don't accept contemplations. Close your mouth against food and taste the lover's mouth in yours. But you moan, she left me, he left me. Don't worry, more will come. Be empty of worrying. Think of who created thoughts. Why do you stay in your prison when the door to the prison is wide open? Move outside the tangle of fear thinking and live in silence. Flow down and down, always widening circles of being. Mm. Mm.
We were on
Anyway,
the Rumi page today, huh?
well, Rumi is the best-selling poet in America. This Muslim from the 12th century is the best-selling poet in America, although he transcended his religion. He came, when you wake up, when you would become an enlightened being, you trend all your programming and you talk directly to the spirit of other people. And that's what I think Rumi did. He uses these stories of his tradition, but he uses it to show that we're more than that. That the spirit is always with us. And so I appreciate what you're doing to us too about that.
Thank you, Alan. I'm so excited that we were able to come together and have this beautiful brotherly chat on September 11th.
But before we go, before we go, I just want to ask you. So here we are, the 19th anniversary of this time, and we're in this crisis now. But what do you feel? Are things changing, or are they not? I don't know. I only know my little window. But what do you think?
I mean, I think that when you have a worldwide sit down like this one, that there are so many human beings that are really truly awakening. And maybe this is why we're seeing so much of the contrary in mainstream media, because they benefit from keeping us in that divided state. And this is what I tell people, like, yeah, they will offer us information, but at the same time, it's a business and they're there to, for the ratings. And sometimes when you are in a field where you're just thinking about ratings, sometimes I say this because I was there. There were times where I was there with a camera crew and people will forget their morals a little bit just to get the better shot, just to get the story. And I'm like, we're potentially affecting somebody's lives by the way we cover them, by the way we tell the story. And I think this is why I'm so passionate about being an independent voice, whether or not I have one or two, three people listen.
Did you feel you had to compromise yourself in those situations? Or
and when in the specific situations, I would be always very vocal about, like, hey, I don't think that's a good idea. Like, that's not what we signed up for. Or sometimes there were times when we were interviewing someone who was just about to share the biggest secret with the camera crew. And I would tell them, I know it's just us. And I know this wasn't things that I was supposed to do. I would have probably gotten fired. But I'm like, I know it's just us. But the moment you start saying everything you're saying and sharing with the world your confession, millions of people are going to watch this. And are you going to be okay with how that information is received? And so I've always been very mindful of the message that gets communicated.
That's why you can maintain your integrity. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. You're very welcome. I think this is why, to me, independent content creators like us, like your platform, New Realities, that guys, if you haven't visited New Realities at YouTube channel and newrealities.com, like Alan Steinfeld has interviewed many of the most wisest, brightest, most interesting minds in from all parts of the world, right? And that's what I appreciate about you, Alan, that you are always very curious and you're always wanting to learn more about others. And never in an interview that I've ever witnessed, you've never made anybody feel less than. You always regard everyone that you are
Thank you for saying that. Don't learn from somebody. I'm not here to judge. It's like if I invite someone on the show, it's because they have something to teach me. That's what I feel.
And, I credit you with being one of my teachers, when I was fresh into my awakening and I was like, just had practiced my awakening story. And you were looking at me like, but let's have another story. I want to learn the story of you now. What are you interested in doing? What do you want? And at the same time, it shocked me because I was like, a new story? And then at the same time, it excited me. and in that way, you've been instrumental to my life, and I don't forget that. I share that with the community over the years, because I think that teachers come in all shapes, colors, sizes, and economical backgrounds. And had I been someone that was just born and be like, well, I only want to mix with people who look like me or people who are poor like me, then I'm not allowing myself to experience the richness that being in this earth offers us. Like, we are potentially, we can create heaven here on earth. It's not silly to
Yeah.
think that, because we, all the resources are here. So as we
Yeah,
wind down, my
absolutely.
little heart is just in that prayerful state for all of us.
Well, you're right. Richness of other people adding to us is what I've been looking for and finding. Talking to you, I love being a guest on Cafecito break, and because you bring out a different part of me. So because of who you are, and this is paradise. I mean, it is when we decide it will. It really has that. This is not a fantasy or some idealistic understand. We could create. We have the resource. You're absolutely right. We have the technology. We have, the food supply to feed everyone. We have the ability to house everyone. Uh, I don't want to blame anybody for not doing this, but I do think the corporate elite are, want to maintain the money and control, and that's a whole other conversation. But
Yeah, and big tech,
the,
like that's part of
oh,
the one of the things, right? When when you asked me earlier, what is my fear? Like, yeah, I have this hopefulness, but sometimes when I go into dream time, or I just see the trends of how quickly we have just adapted to this, right? To life on the screen, how so many people are saying, oh, guess what? Like, we don't, more people are finding it much easier to connect online, but that will never replace the human to human connection, and how divine that is, and how healing and rejuvenating that is when you are in a room with people charged up in the same way. Like, it really changes a person, in a different way. And that's how I feel like we can create heaven on earth each time, when we're with like-minded people who light us up, and in those beautiful harmonious ways. And for me, I feel like this is a beautiful time where the divine feminine and masculine is rising and awakening in many of us. And we're seeing aspects of lots of different lenses of femininity and masculinity playing out in real time. And some of those things don't work anymore, and some of those things will never be gotten rid of, because the natural is all of those frequencies, right? Some of the, like, some people are afraid of people who are get angry, but that's within us for something that, it's meant to, if it's used wisely and not in a hurtful way, it can serve its purpose. So I like to just remind people, embrace all of the beautiful natural currents that you are, and just remember, we're in a human school, and we're doing our best every day. And maybe you messed up yesterday. Today, hopefully, we can take another step to be a little better. I mean, that nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect on this planet, but we can really try our best to be a little bit better for ourselves and for other people.
yeah, we're hopefully you're right, learning from our mistakes or our unconscious behaviors or our unaware patterns, and if we can reflect each other for the beauty of our intention, what we're really intending, which is peace, then we can change each day to be a little better. And
I love
that's
that.
the hope. This is what we're going to extreme times like 9/11 or these last 6 months. Can you believe it? Like 6 months? Isn't that weird? 6 months uh, of the world going down this timeline, but it's lasting. It's like quarantining yourself, like in meditation. For imagine if we all had that chance to meditate for 6 months, and which is
Right.
like part of the intention here, how different we would be if we could just sit. And I've tried to do this more than ever. Sit with, I mean, there were days I didn't leave my apartment and just were with myself. And I found my company actually not so bad, you know, because I was always trying to go to places and meet people, you know, just being with myself. That's okay. I actually enjoy what I'm enjoying. You know, I mean, it's a little silly, but, you know, I
No, I
don't,
get it.
I
I
didn't need the
understand. I think
program,
it's beautiful.
the programming that, oh, we got a little love from the community here from Alex Perez. She sent me.
Oh, thank
Anyway, no, I
you.
didn't need all the stuff that I thought I needed. You know, the parties and the gathering, the meet. I mean, but of course, I've been on Zoom about 5 hours a day, but you know,
But I
that's
have been
something
seeing
else.
you, an active little bee,
But,
an active little bee,
uh,
just
but
lighting
my
up the world.
curiosity hasn't changed. But the inner journey really is the journey, and that's is I think this time has helped everybody get to know that a little more. That's and that has to make a change in the world somehow. It will make a change. And so thank
Are you?
you, Rosie.
Thank you. You know what? I'm gonna wrap up with a Rumi quote, right? And this is for, I'm dedicating this to all the magical children of the world, which is everyone. And it says, out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I will meet you there, where the soul lies down in that grass and the world is too full to talk about. Rumi. So we can go into that place, community, and little by little create that heaven on earth with ourselves and with our loved ones.
Mm,
Alan, any wrap
thank
up comments?
Yeah, it's just that your vibration is helping to lift the planet because you still look at the world. Of course, I don't know you that well, but you still look at the world through that innocence and that potential, and you're holding a vision of what's possible. So, thank you for being that.
Thank you, Alan, for being you. Any any words as we wrap out this beautiful
Yeah,
conversation today?
I think we just have to, I know it's 6 feet apart, but embrace people. Look at them as if because they are divine with the eyes of the divine, looking at the divine, whatever divine means to you. Look at them as eternal, forever being on the path, like you said, the schoolhouse earth, and they're learning the lesson. They're throwing hate at you or what? Well, that's their path of beginning, whatever it is. We're all on a spiritual journey, whether we know it or not. And I think eventually we'll all wake up. And, it may take people less time, but we're here to awaken to that love that we are. We're discovering it every day in ourselves. And, that's we do what we do to help discover more of it in each other, in ourselves, in the world. It's not about knowledge, it's about wisdom.
Well
So
said. I love that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing this time with us. I know you are always busy doing these kind of things. And I was just like, I'm just going to take that chance to see if we could uh, have this
I'm
conversation
always
with me.
here. No, I'm always here. Anything for seriously, because you
Thank you.
remind me of who my
Thank you. And in community, I know that these days are hard. I just really am grateful that you joined us for this conversation and this chat, even if you're going to check it out after its recording. But I think that if you sit through or if you sat through this whole conversation, you could kind of feel what happens when we have a kind of conversation like the one Alan and I just had. It's a conversation that helps activate us, because I have to say that I feel different than when I started the conversation with Alan. I feel more alert. I feel more
Really?
excited. I feel more
What's the
vibrant.
difference?
I feel
Oh,
more alert, more vibrant, more just like happy, right? And I think it's partly that we could have, even if we are having a conversation about what this day is and this life and those aspects are difficult, the the respect that we have for each other and the divinity that we see in each other anchors that beauty. And I hope that everyone who's listening has been able to connect with it. Thank you,
thank
everyone.
you.
Namaste, bendiciones, huepa. You remember what we say, Cafecito break. Do what you can, what you have to take you to the next level and make it huepa. Bye, everyone. Thank you, Alan.
Thanks for bringing this to your beautiful community. Thanks. People,
Anytime.
yes. Thank you.
Bye,
People can
everyone.
find me at com/new realities.
Yes, youtube.com/new realities is where you could find Alan Steinfeld, and newrealities.com, or you could just Google New Realities and the YouTube channel will come up. I definitely advise all of you to subscribe to that channel, because there is a lot of wisdom in those interviews, and I often like to go check them out. Like the Bashar interview
And
is one
look
of my
for my book.
favorites. Oh, yes, in
Who
your
is?
book.
Which?
Can you? Bashar is one of my favorite
Okay,
interviews.
that's got 500,000 views. And my book is coming next year, which is a collection of essays by people I feel are the leading thinkers in the UFO field. Linda Moulton Howe, Whitley Strieber. I even got an essay on Matt's estate, and they let me publish that. So real leaders. Who else? Grant Cameron, if you know him. Mary Rodwell, I think you saw her.
Yeah.
Anyway, these are, I think, it's called Making Contact, which is like, how are we going to change the world by opening up to the idea that we are being contacted, like right now, all the time. We just have to open our minds to these new realities. So that's what I'm
Ooh, that
doing.
sounds like another conversation with Alan is coming up.
Thank you.
So I'm gonna be bugging you when you get closer to that release date.
You're not bugging me, though, please. It's not that language. No, we're
Naughty,
working
naughty.
together on this.
All right, you got it.
Yes.
Muchas
Okay.
gracias.
Gracias.
Ciao. Bendiciones, everybody.